Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us today for Spotlight on Senior Issues. This program is one of a series of programs looking at our fastest growing segment of the population, senior citizens. So whether you're a senior or you have a family member who is, hopefully this will provide some information for you. Today we're focusing on fraud, something that's not a topic just for seniors, but for people throughout the community. Joining me, Jeannette Clem, who's Executive Vice President and Branch Manager with Southwest Missouri Bank, and helping me co-host today, Kristen Hanna, one of our senior communication majors. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
We're hearing a lot about fraud today. We turn on the TV, you hear about it. Do you, from a bank perspective, feel that we're hearing more about it, or is it actually increasing more in our society?
I think you're both. I think you do hear more about it. I think people are more likely to report it and to talk about it. But because of our changing technology and different methods that people can initiate fraud, I think we're seeing much more happening today.
Okay. So this is a topic that, as I said, is across the generations, whether you're a college student like Kristen or you're
Absolutely.
a senior citizen.
Any age is susceptible to fraud, and we see it all ages.
Great.
So like you said, you see it at all ages. I think my parents have actually had to deal with fraud in a couple of different instances as far as credit cards go and things like that. When we think about fraud, there's kind of a large different umbrella, different types of schemes can fall under. So can you define for us what exactly you classify as fraud?
If you want to talk specifically for senior fraud, I think there's is fraud initiated towards different age groups. So you probably see more senior fraud that has to deal with healthcare issues or over-the-phone telemarketing schemes, lottery winnings, investment fraud. This is an age group that has probably more money than the younger age groups. They have more established investments and funds. They own their home, different things. So they're targeted many times by certain scam artists. Younger generations probably get more into credit card fraud, things over the internet, PayPal items, Craigslist, selling vehicles, and a big scheme for them is I've sold my car or a piece of furniture, they send me a check, they want me to send them some money back. You know, those are all signs that someone is trying to scam you. And that is an avenue, the technology part of like the internet, where younger people seem to be more susceptible to fraud.
Okay.
So when you're looking at seniors, and you mentioned telemarketing, and we all get those calls no matter what our age, do you find that perhaps seniors are more susceptible to be taken by a telemarketing scam? Is there a certain characteristic that they don't hang up the phone like the rest of us do?
Yeah, I think that's one of the major things. Like I said, not only that there may be a certain target for certain kinds of scams, definitely as the older seniors are, but I think they're a generation where I probably would be more likely to be rude and hang up on you and not listen to your story. But my mother would certainly not be so quick to do that. My mother had what we call the grandparents scam, where they called their phone, they pretended to be one of her grandchildren, even had the name, and they're in another country, they've been arrested, they need money sent. Now, I was very proud of her. She did tell him he needed to call his mother if he was in trouble and not his grandmother. So, but I think many seniors probably have a little tendency not to be rude to someone, and they trust people more. We talked about technology being a part of that. They may not be as sophisticated in newer technologies. This person may have more information that makes them seem true to their story that they got from the internet. So they actually have some of this personal information that, you know, the senior person would think, well, how did they get that if this wasn't real?
Right. How do they know the names? How do they know the family?
Exactly.
And so forth? So you're referring to like Facebook. People are going on Facebook to find out.
We see that. I see that definitely in examples of some of our seniors that have had fraud. Facebook was a place where they got a lot of personal information about family members that made them believe that this truly was a family member in trouble.
And in this case, if somebody falls for that type of scam, they just act, you know, oh, I'll help you now without asking any more questions of other family members, it sounds like. They're just on their own saying, okay, I'll send that check to Johnny.
Yes, yeah. And definitely these scam artists are very good. They're very good con men, and they talk very, very well. So they definitely know how to, let's keep this secret between me and you. You know, I love you so much, Grandma. Please don't tell anyone. I'm really embarrassed. So, and it's hard for, I'm sure, as a grandmother, it's very hard to refuse your grandchildren help when they need it.
You talk about it's really hard to refuse the help whenever they need it, but obviously elderly people have to step up at some point and say, okay, this is enough. Obviously, this is a scam or something's going on. So can you give us a little bit like a step-by-step of how people kind of avoid these things from happening, or whenever the telemarketer does call and say we need some information, what are these people supposed to say?
I think the first thing that they can do is not fall for it. Anyone calling you on the telephone, saying they have maybe even certain personal information, anytime they start asking for money or for a bank account number or a credit card number or a debit card number or maybe the 3 digits on the back of the card, you need to stop. They need to understand this is not information I should be giving out. Your social security number, your date of birth. Someone just calling you on the phone, the best way to stop this is to never give out personal information like that on the telephone to anyone. If you've initiated it with a company, it needs to be a reputable company. Never when it's been initiated and coming to you as a solicitation over the phone, by email. Text messages is a younger crowd. If you've ever gotten a text message for win a $100 Walmart gift card by being a secret shopper, well, that is a scam.
Exactly. I was just going to say, sometimes I'll have certain things come through my cell phone and I'm like, this is obviously not. I'm not going to get that cruised. It's not to the Bahamas. Yeah, exactly.
So and that's where I want to really reinforce the point of, we're talking about senior fraud today,
correct.
But this is not. Well, they're just susceptible to this, and everyone else isn't. Absolutely not. It's of all generations, of all ages, that can fall for these scams.
And I think you also kind of talked to us a little bit about, before the show, the fact that seniors sometimes are more alone in certain aspects and don't have as much family around, so this might actually be one of the downfalls for them as well.
I think if they have no family members, or maybe family members live away, aren't living close to help take care of them, they definitely are an age where they can become lonely, yes. And these are people that are paying attention to them, maybe calling them every day. So they feel like they become a personal relationship with this person. We even see online. They really think they now have a boyfriend or a girlfriend online, and now they're in trouble and they need money sent to them. And some of these frauds or scams may go quite a few weeks or months before they start asking for money. So they cultivate this elderly person and
they do have
and become their friend,
Yeah.
and they are building a relationship with them before they start trying to get money out of them.
Now, are these problems compounded by the headline-making stories we get where different government agencies or companies are being breached on their credit card records and so forth, that they get all this information about someone?
Yeah, I think that's where, have we seen an increase in this? Definitely, because I think we've seen an increase in the ability, again, comes back to technology. Your personal information is out there in a lot of databases. And if those databases have a breach and someone has stolen this information, and then they're selling this on, we call it the black market internet. I'm sure there's someone there. There's somewhere there's a black market, and they're selling out this information, whether it's debit card numbers that have been stolen from merchants, or whether it's your social security number, your age, your date of birth. And I think they're using that then to have, again, that information, maybe be going out and actually doing identity fraud on you. You talked about what steps can you follow to not, you have to check your credit report. Seniors probably don't very often check their credit report.
I'm not getting a loan. I don't need to see what kind of my credit rating is.
That's right. They're an age where they aren't getting loans anymore usually. They have established homes paid for, cars paid for, those types of things. So they may not go regularly to the bank, get a loan, and have my credit report checked. But they need to, there is an annual creditreport.com, and they absolutely need to check that annually and look it over. If they have trouble reading it, get a family member to help you, or we're really happy at the bank.
Come into the bank, and
we we can be a really good resource. Any of your banks that you bank with, those employees there are trained to read credit reports, help you understand if something may be a fraud, talking to people, asking questions, researching things, whether it's about an investment or a check you've received in the mail and you don't even know who it's from.
Right.
All of those things. Come to your bank and ask questions, talk about it. You know, we can do some research with you, but we can also help maybe guide you.
Well, I know there's a lot of resources out there, and you have some websites that people can go to for some of this information. As we're going along today, we'll show some of the websites. And well, the FBI, obviously involved with cybercrime and so forth.
Yeah.
FBI.gov. You can go here and you can see where it just lists all the different types of fraud schemes and
And
awareness.
I thought this was an excellent website. It's very plain language. It's very easy to understand. They list out why seniors sometimes are a target, and they list a lot of the schemes that can happen specifically to seniors.
Right, and this is obviously not something that's just located to the community you're in. It's international crime. You know,
Oh,
people
yeah.
overseas are getting into our records.
And that's a big thing to know. There is a lot of foreign fraud going on. They're stealing our money. They're in a foreign country and stealing money from bank accounts in the United States. And again, then just trying to recoup that money it doesn't happen very often,
It
unfortunately.
becomes very frustrating for people.
And there's not much law enforcement can do about it. The FTC.gov, though, is the
Right.
Federal Trade Commission. This is another good resource and another reporting system. If you think you're being scammed or you truly had some scheme going on, this is a place where you can report that information, and then it's a good resource for people to go to and understand, I heard that same story, that same company tried to contact me too and do this scam on me.
So the reporting aspect is an important part, that talk to your bank, talk to people, let you know, I think I've had a problem, you know, not
Yes.
just keep quiet about it. You need to take those steps with the federal government or the state government or whatever it might be that's trying to enforce some of these laws.
And I think that's another thing, what we're talking about, that maybe the more seniors, if they've been scammed, it may take longer for them to realize it, that that's what it was, and then they may be afraid to tell people, to actually report that this has happened. And I think one of the articles I read estimate that $2.5 billion are stolen specifically from the senior generation in fraud overall. And that's a lot.
That's a lot of money that they're losing.
A lot of money. And they really think that's underreported. They really do think that it's higher than that. And there's a lot of them that are afraid to. You know, my son and daughter may think Mama can't handle her affairs now, and they're afraid that they may take some of their independence away from them.
So that's part of their, you know, embarrassment and
Their
the
reluctance to maybe
to do that.
to say, I've done something I shouldn't have, and I now realize it.
So from the perspective of the family, you've mentioned mom and dad and the kids and so forth. What are things that you recommend for family members to keep an eye on as our parents get older? You know, what some early warning signs maybe perhaps and things?
You know, if you're talking about probably being susceptible to telemarketing fraud, usually they're going to get a lot of phone calls at home from marketers. That'll be a first sign. They may have a lot of mail sitting around, whether it's magazines, sweepstakes. You know, you see a lot of people writing checks to the Publishers Clearinghouse. You know, they're going to show up with balloons and $1 million
get that big
check,
win.
you know, like you see on TV. And most of the time, we see a lot of fraud being perpetuated calling themselves that. So if you have the ability, if you're maybe a child and your parents, you're on their accounts or have access to view their bank statements, it's probably a really good idea to try to do that. Again, this becomes a very hard line of they may not want you to do that, and they may want you to absolutely help them with their finances.
So you need to have that discussion with your family.
I really encourage, yes. I encourage the seniors to be open with family members that they trust or friends that they trust. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not family members that will take advantage of seniors. It still happens, and quite often. So I think you have to be careful that, you know, did mom and dad have some workers into the house to do some business? Did mom and dad have some yard work done, and we're not sure who that was, and how much did they charge them for that? You know, so you still see local fraud happening, whether it's care workers or people doing work in your home, or even friends or family, maybe grandchildren live with grandma and their friends come in and stole the checkbook. We still see a lot of that going on. So again, monitoring your parents' bank statements with them occasionally will help you maybe recognize something that's not quite right.
So really, with the privacy, and I know senior citizens, Social Security is a big thing. Direct deposit now, they don't worry about going to the bank with the check, but a lot of people, the seniors, still carry that little card proudly in their wallet that I'm eligible now for Social Security.
There's very few times you need to give out your Social Security number. Now, they're definitely at a bank or for medical, if you're going into the hospital, things like that, you're going to be required to use your Social Security number. But usually we don't need to see your card. I mean, you don't have to have your Social Security card. You can tell us what your number is. So I recommend you not carry that card at all.
Keep it somewhere safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And protect your Medicare cards, insurance cards. There's lots of information on those that can be used also. So I think those are all things that you need to monitor.
So as family, we'll keep an eye on what are they doing with those types of things.
Yes, where is it being stored when you're at home? Are there other people in your home that those need to be stored more securely so that they don't have access to them? Your bank accounts, things like that, checks.
Following up on that. Okay.
So do you think that also having an open line of communication with your parent or grandparent and building kind of sort of a trust between you two also helps with these types of things and avoiding these types of occurrences?
I absolutely do, yes. If we do see something going on inappropriately with a senior, maybe with their accounts or something that we're suspicious about, it's really nice to have maybe a family member on that account that we could call and discuss it with them too. And maybe the senior isn't quite understanding what's happening or isn't realizing it where we may be having knowledge of other acts such as this that we know that this is a scam. So it helps to have a family member that we can help maybe in the intervention of trying to get a scam stopped and before too much money is lost. Sometimes it's a great deal of money that people are willingly giving away. So.
Now you mentioned online earlier, and sometimes seniors are saying, I don't want to mess with online banking, I don't understand it, I'm still going to write that check, or they go to the bank and want to cash a check and have a lot of cash around their home. And you see a lot of this as well, that they're the cash generation.
And definitely one of the red flags that we see, maybe that a senior is having a problem with being scammed, is when they do come in and start taking out large amounts of cash. Because usually any time, this is for any age, this is the words of advice, anytime someone needs you to go send that money by Western Union or MoneyGram or some means
a third party
such as that, a third party means that is an anonymous means of sending money, it could be highly likely this is a scam. This is a scam. So we would see them come in, yes, cash out $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and then they'll be going over to the Western Union and sending it off somewhere. Those are all warning signs for us that, because why is that? It's very seldom that someone needs to do it in that manner. So those are definitely some red flags that we certainly like it if there's someone else on the account that we could get a hold of and go, we need to ask you, do you know this is going on? Do you know if it's legitimate? And we'll certainly ask our customer that. We do try to bring that up. Some people don't like that sometimes, but we're just trying to deter this fraud.
And then, of course, once the fraud occurs, it's hard to recover anything, I imagine.
It's pretty much, I go towards the impossible to recover. It's very seldom does any recovery come from it. And very seldom does any prosecution come from it. Like we said, this could be someone in a foreign country. I mean, I've seen people Western Union money off to the country of Lebanon or Canada or someplace. Well, this is someone that's out of the country and doesn't, there's not a way to...
U.S. laws won't apply to them.
U.S. laws don't apply. There's not a way. Doesn't mean it doesn't need to be reported. Absolutely needs to be reported to your local law enforcement and to some of these websites that we've talked about.
So the websites that I think we've been showing some of those as well. The identity theft is something that we hear a lot about, as you said, people know, and you're looking at the credit reports to find out whether that's happening. For young people, we think about identity theft as, well, somebody's going to use my Social Security number and, get additional credit.
Yes.
But identity theft on a senior, would that give them access to some of these financial records and so forth that they have?
It can. Usually identity theft is more, they're going to open accounts in your name using your as we say, identity in some other part of the United States. So they're pretending to be you, which is why it's so important to monitor your credit report. That will let you know if other accounts have been opened up, or if people, your credit report will also tell you who's been inquiring on your credit, which might be another suspect to that. Something we've seen much more this last year, and I think the IRS has put out information out there, and definitely on their website is more information, is people filing your tax return, a false tax return in your name. And we've had much more customers definitely in the last year that this has happened to. So they have your Social Security number, may even use your name and address, legitimate one. They will create a fake W-2. They will file your tax return before you did and get a refund.
They'll get your the refund. That's not actually yours, but they'll get a refund.
They'll get a refund. So definitely the IRS will only contact you by letter form, asking you questions. But if anything, like if you tried to file your taxes electronically and maybe some rejection came back on that, that could be a sign that maybe someone has done something already on your Social Security number. So keeping track of your taxes, what your income is being reported to Social Security. I think they send an annual statement out to everyone about how much your earnings have been through the years. That's another thing to monitor. We talked about Medicare being a senior fraud sometimes, people filing false medical claims. You know, you're getting
your number.
You're getting free equipment, you know, but they have filed a claim on Medicare using your number. So watch your benefits statements that you get from your insurance company or from Medicare, and make sure these are legitimate, that someone isn't filing claims and frauding Medicare in your name.
So a lot of things to consider, and I know recently I remember hearing about even the simple aspect of writing a check and putting it in the mail could lead to problems where you leave it in your mailbox, somebody comes by and steals it out of your mailbox. So that type of security awareness is very important.
We've actually had some recent cases of that. What they call wash the check. If you're maybe a rural customer especially, and you're used to putting your bills out in your mailbox.
Put the little red flag up.
And put your red flag up. I really don't suggest you do that. I suggest you go to the post office or find one of the
blue postal
boxes and drop your mail in there. They will go down the country roads, absolutely, and steal mail. They get personal information that way if it's your mail that's in there. But they will also steal your check you wrote to the electric company, and they have a means to chemically wash it and make it out to them, and come to the bank and try to cash it or use it somewhere else and cash the check. So it is happening currently.
So that's a current
that's
problem.
A recent problem.
Not only seniors, but everyone
True
be
to
aware
life,
of that.
recent problem, and it doesn't matter any age. Yeah, any age.
Yeah. So the crooks keep coming up with new ways to take people to scams, and maybe the awareness is something.
Watching your trash. Don't throw away personal information in the trash. Have it shredded. Burn it. You know, if you're rural, lots of people burn their trash, so burn it in the barrel. But if it has personal information on it, you need to be safeguarding it.
Well, we're talking about protecting the seniors as they age. Earlier we had a show on the series about, after someone passes away, what happens when somebody's trying to settle an estate. You have all these records with people's numbers and so forth on it. Probably need to be secure with disposing of those as well.
Absolutely, and it's very important if you do have a deceased person that you contact Social Security and let them know, and that you probably even need to contact the credit reporting agencies. You can actually have them notate that this is a deceased person. So if someone has now gone through death records and decides, I want to falsely identify myself as this deceased person, if they tried to go get credit, it would show on the credit report that this is already a deceased person and put out a red flag to the person they're trying to get credit through.
So a lot of things to consider.
Yeah.
So basically awareness is a key aspect when we're talking about fraud and affecting seniors. And then where do you turn? You said go to your bank, go to places that people are going to be the resources for you if you do suspect something.
Absolutely. I really do encourage all seniors, do not be afraid to talk to family members or trusted friends. There are lots of people out there that may be your church, that there's some trusted friends. But please come to the bank and talk to us. We really will discuss with you any matter and try to give you our best advice, or try to do some research for you. And we absolutely are probably your best resource to say we've seen that scam before, or we mistrust what they're saying. We talked a little bit about investment fraud, and I think seniors are very susceptible to that.
Accounts.
Right, they have maybe money to invest. And if that old saying of if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. Yeah, you're not going to triple your earnings in today's world, especially with low interest rates. There's not much you can do to triple your earnings, so be very wary of those.
So there are people who prey on the seniors. They were looking at that low percentage rates on their accounts and saying, well, we can do better than that, just give us your money.
That's exactly right.
And tying that together.
Yeah. So you talk about how seniors have more money sometimes than other generations as well. So is there ever a possibility that people could get scammed out of money in the face of some organization that calls themselves a charity or something like that?
Oh, yes. I think that's another thing where if it's unsolicited, they've called you on the phone, they've mailed you some things, most all even larger charities, whether it's the Red Cross or United Way, any of those things, have local organizations that you can come to. And I highly recommend everybody contact people locally. Don't do it over the phone. Don't do it over the internet. There are local people that you can go to and mail your check directly to the organization where you know exactly that is appropriately
or even
them.
take it into them. And
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
There's local businesses, banks, financial institutions, investment companies. If you're trying to find someone reputable to do some work at your home and things like that, your Chamber of Commerce is a great place to get referrals from.
Resources.
Yeah, there's lots of resources, and do it locally, and that way you can be much more of a trust that this is a legitimate company or charity.
So even for our seniors who may be, as you say, on their own, their family doesn't live in town, there are things that they need to be aware of, and then their family from out of town just help them out as well.
Yes.
And tying all that together. Finally, from a banker's perspective, there's a lot of steps people can take. You talked about transferring the accounts, and trusts are another thing. If they just have questions about, I have saved, what do I need to do to protect that for the future and the family, come in and talk to banks as well.
Yeah, there's a lots of legal issues to talk about who I have on my account, or do I need a trust? And the bank is a great resource to visit about all those different legal aspects to how can I put someone on and keep it safe, and do I need a trust account? Do I have enough assets to make that, to make that be a good thing even for the future to handling my estate after I'm gone? So your bank is just a great resource to do that. So, please do go in and talk to your financial institutions.
Great. Well, Jeannette, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Kristen?
Yeah, thank you for coming. Yeah.
And so today we kind of intergenerational sharing with Kristen on the set with us, but I think it's a topic, as we say, fraud affects everyone, but focusing especially on the seniors, creating an awareness. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
And I'd like to thank you for our viewers for joining us this week on Spotlight on Senior Issues. Hope you can join us again for other episodes as we continue to look at topics of concern and of interest for senior citizens in our community. We'll see you then.